I still remember the scent of incense and the echoes of gospel choirs resonating through the cramped hall of our Harlem church. My earliest memories are painted in hues of soulful harmonies, the cadence of jazz improvisations drifting through open windows, and a profound reverence for the very music that nurtured my spirit. My name is Anthony Tony Jenkins, and my life has been a relentless pursuit of artistic truth, a quest to rise above the heavy clouds of prejudice, self-doubt, and the systemic oppression that has shaped not only the streets of Harlem, but also the corridors of America's music industry during the transformative decade of the 1980s, an era defined by cultural upheaval and artistic innovation. Every Sunday, the congregation would gather, and the air would thrum with energy, a collective heartbeat rising and falling with each note sung. We were bound together by our shared stories, our hardships woven into the rich fabric of every melody that filled the room. My mother, a formidable woman with a voice that could shatter glass, often led the choir, enchanting us all with her dynamic presence. Watching her command the stage, I felt a stirring in my chest, a deep yearning to express the world as I saw it, to harness that same power she wielded. Through her, I learned that music was not just an art form. It was a weapon against despair, an anthem for the marginalized, echoing the struggles born from our community's history. As I grew older, the streets of Harlem became my canvas and my muse, a rich tapestry of life and culture to explore. I'd wander into dimly lit clubs where seasoned musicians poured their souls into the night, sharing the pain of lost love and the joy of fleeting moments in compositions that pulled at the heartstrings, like a soulful ballad bringing back memories of home. Each strum of the guitar, each swing of the saxophone felt like a conversation, a dialogue with voices long gone and dreams yet to come alive. Here I faced my fears of performing. The flashing lights and hopeful faces in the crowd only intensified my passion. I often found myself rehearsing in front of a cracked mirror in our tiny apartment, conjuring an audience of ghosts who urged me to break free of the chains that held me back, battling the inner critic that whispered doubts. Yet the industry was merciless, a jungle where only the strongest survived. I faced closed doors and rejections after countless auditions and showcases, my name lost among a sea of talent vying for the same recognition. Each rejection added weight to the burden of my ambition, reinforcing the belief that perseverance is often the most crucial trait for any artist. But with each disappointment, I committed myself even more to my craft. I found solace in late-night jam sessions with friends, where laughter and improvisation flowed as easily as the music itself, reminiscent of the creative freedom we felt in those early days at home. Those moments were pure magic, reminding me that the essence of music lay in its ability to connect souls, regardless of the barriers erected by society, weaving us together in a shared experience. As the years unfolded, I had a revelation. I would have to carve my own path, redefine what it meant to succeed on my terms. In 1983, I gathered a handful of fellow musicians, and we formed Soul's Embrace, a band dedicated to blending traditional gospel with contemporary sounds, an effort to bridge the gap between generations and genres. We played for any audience willing to listen, from bustling street corners to community events, each performance a small victory against the tides of an unforgiving industry. Those early shows not only showcased our music, but also became a celebration of our community's spirit and resilience. Our sound began to resonate with the people. It was as if we were giving voice to their stories, joys, struggles, and dreams. By the time our debut album, Echoes of Truth, hit the shelves in 1985, we had cultivated a devoted following, a testament to our unwavering commitment to authenticity. We'd managed not just to break through the noise, but to redefine what success meant for us as artists. It was no longer about the glitz and glamour. It was about authenticity, community, and uplifting one another. Each note became a testament to resilience in the face of adversity, a reaffirmation that despite the struggles we faced, together we could create something profound, something that could stand the test of time and inspire future generations. Looking back now, I understand that our music was more than just a collection of songs. It was an extension of our identity, a cry for individuality in a world that often seeks conformity. My journey, filled with ups and downs, has taught me that art is a living, breathing entity. It grows, evolves, and often takes unexpected turns. What truly matters is the spark it ignites within us all, the shared human experience that transcends boundaries, an enduring testament to our collective spirit, and a reminder that our stories hold power and significance. I was born in 1962 at the tail end of the civil rights movement, into a world that still harbored deep-seated inequalities despite promises of change. Growing up in the heart of Harlem, I absorbed the rich traditions of gospel and jazz, genres steeped in the resilience and triumph of the Black experience, under the watchful guidance of my devoted mother, Lillian. Her unwavering faith in the face of adversity, combined with a subtle insistence on maintaining dignity amid hardship, left an indelible mark on my soul. Each Sunday, as we sat among our neighbors in the dimly lit pews of our local church, I felt the reverberations of voices raised in unison, their harmonies transcending our daily struggles. Lillian taught me that music could be both a prayer and a battle cry, a vehicle to express the inexpressible, a balm for the wounds inflicted by discrimination, and a beacon to light the way forward through the darkness. With every note sung, I witnessed the power of sound to unify, inspire, and heal. In that nurturing sanctuary of church choirs and closed-door community gatherings, where laughter mingled with tears, my love for soul and rhythm first took shape as I absorbed the influences of legendary figures like Aretha Franklin and James Brown, who infused their work with messages of empowerment and resistance. In those vibrant moments, I began to forge my own identity, one where my voice could rise above the noise of oppression and declare that I, too, had a story worth telling. My journey, however, was never meant to be confined within the echo of hymns alone. The allure of a larger stage, the urban underground clubs of New York City, beckoned with promises of freedom, fierce debates, and the possibility of lives reimagined through rhythm and blues. I longed to step into that realm, to transition from the safety of the church choir to a world where my gift of music might stand on its own, away from the judgments and constraints of institutional expectations guiding my early experiences. Such dreams, as I soon learned, would require not only talent, but also a level of persistence that even my steadfast mother might have found daunting at times. By the early 1980s, the hip-hop era was in full bloom, its beats and rhymes reverberating through the cracks of urban America. Yet my heart still belonged to R&B and soul. I found myself torn between two worlds: the vibrant new sound that was making history in block parties and graffiti-splashed subways, and the timeless elegance of soulful ballads that had soothed generations before me. I decided to remain true to the core of who I was. I would build my career on the legacy of gospel, jazz, and the soulful passion of R&B, determined to let my music speak for its own authenticity rather than to mimic trends for the sake of fame. My first true taste of the underground music scene came on a humid summer night in 1983. I remember the neon glow filtering through rain-soaked streets as I stepped into a dimly lit club nestled in the maze of downtown New York City. The air was thick with anticipation and cigarette smoke, and the crowd was a mosaic of dreamers, outcasts, and renegades who, like me, were searching for a piece of the American dream. That night, while my heart pounded in rhythm with the bass line, I took the stage for the first time as Tony Jenkins, solo soul singer. The soulful croon of my voice intertwined with the live band's smooth grooves, and for a moment, I believed that I could bridge the gap between the past and the future with every note I sang. However, I did not yet know that the road ahead was littered with professional challenges that extended far beyond the technicalities of musical performance. Despite the immediate buzz and applause the performance generated, the path to making a name in the industry proved steep and fraught with obstacles engineered by prejudice. I soon discovered that major record labels, steeped in an era of conservatism and resistant to change, were less enthusiastic about nurturing authentic soul expressions than about packaging marketable, sanitized versions of our heritage. My music, rooted in both the spirituality of gospel and the rawness of R&B, was often dismissed as too niche or, worse, too politically charged. Every rejection letter, filled with corporate platitudes, felt like yet another attempt to narrow my identity into a tidy, profitable box. A box that could never contain the complexity of my experience, my art, or my very essence. The year 1985 was particularly pivotal. During the Grammy Awards that year, a fierce diversity debate erupted over the lack of recognition for Black artists, especially those who didn't fit the mainstream mold. I remember watching the televised event with my heart pounding, There were bold speeches, contentious interviews, and expressions of outrage that made it clear that institutions like these would not be the ones to champion true diversity and artistic integrity. I felt both anger and solidarity with the voices demanding change, sentiments that would firmly tether to my resolve as I navigated the ever-challenging waters of the music industry. My struggle reached its zenith when I encountered a key figure, Mr. Harold Johnson, a seasoned industry mentor who believed in authenticity over commercial compromise. Harold's mentorship began on an ordinary afternoon in 1984 when I was invited to a small recording session in an underground studio known only to a select few. His presence was calming and his words decisive. Tony, the industry is built on profit and politics, but your voice, your soul, has the power to reshape minds and hearts, he told me. Under his guidance, I learned not only the technical intricacies of soulful performance, but also how to navigate a business marred by prejudice. Harold was a beacon amid the darkness of corporate machinations, a true believer in the transformative power of art. Yet no journey is complete without opposition, and soon enough I found myself pitted against a man whose singular vision embodied everything I had been fighting against. Mr. Charles Chuck Carter, a top executive at one of New York's most influential record labels. Chuck carved his empire with a relentless emphasis on market trends and image crafting, and he was notorious for stifling voices that did not conform. Every meeting with him was a cold battle of wills. Time and again, he dismissed my artistic expression as impractical and too rooted in old ways, insisting that success in the modern market demanded a compromise of integrity. Our encounters were often terse and charged with a tension that left me both frustrated and more determined than ever to stand by my convictions. My personal world was not devoid of warmth amidst these professional battles. I found strength in my family, particularly in my younger sister, Mariah. A pillar of support, Mariah was the one who had always understood that my battle was not only for personal glory, but for cultural preservation. For every child who sang in the church choir, for every musician who dreamed of transcending boundaries, and for every community whose history had been slowly erased by policies that favored profit over people, she reminded me of our mother Lillian's wisdom, that our heritage was a tapestry woven from pain and triumph, and that if we dared to express it honestly, it could inspire more than just applause. It could spark change in the hearts of those who listened. As I stood on those makeshift stages, surrounded by a diverse crowd, I marveled at how music could weave a tapestry of resilience. Each beat resonated with shared struggles and triumphs, weaving stories as varied as the artists themselves. I encountered poets who turned spoken word into weapons of activism, DJs who transformed the unlikeliest of samples into anthems of protest, and rappers who painted vivid narratives of life in the city's forgotten corners. Their lyrics spoke of hardship, love, and hope, igniting fires within us that could no longer be dampened by the oppressive political climate. In those fleeting moments, united by our love for rhythm and rhyme, I bore witness to the power of collective expression. The energy in those clubs was electric, often surreal, as we danced and sang the night away, minds momentarily untouched by the harsh realities looming outside. I found friends and fellow dreamers, people who, like me, navigated the corporate grind by day and transformed into vibrant performers at night. We were a motley crew, each with our own scars from a society that insisted on dividing us. Yet in the music, we were whole, and in those spaces, we forged a kinship that transcended our everyday struggles. As I immersed myself deeper into this underground scene, I also began to realize the importance of our narratives. Each night, it became increasingly clear that we weren't just fighting for our own voices, we were amplifying voices that had been systematically silenced. Each artist carried with them the weight of their community's history, stories of immigration, of resilience against systemic decay, and of love born from pain. Our gatherings, filled with laughter and catharsis, became breeding grounds for ideas on how to enact real change, challenging each other to consider how art could ignite social movements. As the weeks turned into months, our collective grew, welcoming newcomers who shared their own unique experiences and perspectives. Each artist added a new layer to our discussions, like brushstrokes on a vast canvas, transforming it into a vibrant tapestry of voices. We began to organize themed performances that highlighted specific issues: immigrant rights, climate change, and the struggle for racial equality. These events served not only as platforms for expression, but also as strategic gatherings where we could formulate plans for outreach and community engagement. We created spaces for dialogue, inviting local activists to join us in brainstorming sessions. In these settings, we began to see the power of collaboration. One artist, a spoken word poet, suggested we merge our talents to create a multimedia installation that showcased the struggles depicted in our individual works. This idea sparked a flurry of creativity. Dancers interpreted the pain of displacement through movement, while musicians infused their melodies with rhythms that resonated with our collective heartbeat. Together, we cultivated an environment where art was not merely a reflection of life, but a proactive force capable of seducing hearts and minds. As news of our efforts spread, we caught the attention of local media outlets. Suddenly, our small gatherings transformed into larger community events, attracting those who sought solace and inspiration. We were no longer just isolated voices. We had become a choir singing in harmony. Each event felt electric, charged with the understanding that we were not only sharing our stories, but also building a movement. People would leave our shows with more than just entertainment. They walked away with a sense of purpose, encouraged to take actionable steps in their own spheres of influence. Gradually, we began to establish partnerships with organizations that aligned with our mission. We collaborated on workshops centered around art as a tool for healing and advocacy, providing a safe haven for those who had been marginalized. These initiatives taught participants not just how to create art, but also how to wield it as a means of empowerment, how to frame their narratives in ways that resonated with a broader audience. This journey was not without its challenges. There were moments of self-doubt and frustration, particularly when faced with systemic barriers that sought to stifle our voices. However, it was during these times that our community rallied around one another, reminding us of the strength found in unity and shared struggle. We became adept at navigating these obstacles, using them as fuel for our creativity instead of allowing them to extinguish our flames. With every setback, our resolve deepened. With every word spoken on stage, we felt the power of our stories resonate beyond the confines of our venue. Looking back, I realized that art had become the very fabric that knitted us together. We persistently pushed boundaries while recognizing that the act of creation was inseparable from our collective identities. It wasn't just about making art. It was about reclaiming narratives, fostering empathy, and lighting the way for future generations who would continue the work we had begun. With every set we played, we sought to create a ripple effect, knowing that our influence could extend far beyond the walls of our private obsessions. Activism seeped into our music, texts, and dialogues. We collaborated on benefit concerts, raising funds for local shelters, and organized workshops to teach marginalized youth about the power of self-expression through art. These efforts fueled our passion and brought a sense of purpose to our nightly shows. Each artist's evolution mirrored the community's resilience, and as the years passed, an intricate network formed. Word about these clubs spread, attracting both die-hard fans and curious newcomers. While some arrived to simply enjoy the entertainment, many left with newly forged convictions. This infusion of fresh energy breathed life into our fight, proving that the revolution was indeed a dance floor away. We were in the midst of a cultural renaissance, and the soul of the city thrummed beneath our feet, echoing the mantra that while the corporate world sought to commodify our spirits, we nurtured an alternative that belonged to us, one where art reigned supreme, and every voice deserved to be heard. As I honed my craft, I began to notice patterns not only in my personal growth, but in the way the industry responded to me. I recall one particularly disheartening meeting with Charles Carter in the summer of 1986. We gathered in a sleek conference room with the cold sterility of a corporate setting, and he unfolded before me a series of graphs indicating market trends. "Tony," he said, his tone clipped and unemotional, "the market research clearly shows that a more sanitized version of your sound would sell better. We've tried that before. Musical adjustments that cater to a broader, less confrontational demographic." I stared at him, feeling as if I were caught in a vice. Every fiber of my being rebelled against the notion that I should dilute my artistic expression for the sake of commerce, even if it promised acceptance in the mainstream. I replied softly, "Music isn't just about selling records, Chuck. It's about telling our truth. And the truth, in its raw form, may not always be palatable." The silence that followed was as heavy as the weight of an invisible chain, binding me to the struggle for creative autonomy. Every setback reinforced my determination. I began documenting my experiences, both the triumphs and the trials, in a series of journals and audio recordings. Writing became my refuge and my rebellion. Late at night, after the underground clubs had emptied and the cacophony of New York had faded to a distant hum, I would sit at my battered desk with nothing but a pen, my thoughts, and a determination to never let the voice of my people be silenced. In those moments, I recounted the joy of singing in my mother's church, the electric thrill of performing in a club filled with heads bobbing to soulful rhythms, and the frustration of having my authenticity questioned by an industry that was too ready to sell out black culture for profit. My words were raw and unedited, a testament to the soul of a musician unwilling to compromise. As the decade progressed, the lines between commercial appeal and artistic integrity became more blurred. I accepted small commissions, collaborated with like-minded artists, and even began experimenting with fusing the soulful sounds of my youth with subtle hip-hop elements. I had seen firsthand how the new wave of urban music was influencing the soundscape of America, and though my heart was anchored in the traditions of R&B, I knew that evolution was inevitable. However, each step I took was measured, deliberate, and always in service of preserving the cultural identity that had been passed down to me through gospel, jazz, and the resilience of my Harlem community. The moment I had been working toward, however, seemed impossibly distant until a transformative opportunity presented itself in early 1988. Harold Johnson, my steadfast mentor, had been instrumental in arranging a series of studio sessions with an independent producer known for his avant-garde approach to soul music. The project, titled Rhythms of Resistance, was meant to be a live recording capturing the essence of New York's underground music scene. It was scheduled to be performed across several secret venues, each echoing tales of struggle and hope. As I prepared for these sessions, I realized that every note I sang was imbued with the spirit of my community. Every chord strummed a quiet protest against a damnable industry that insisted on conformity and compromise. During one recording session in a converted warehouse in Brooklyn, I found myself surrounded by a small ensemble of musicians who had all been through their own battles. Among them was Darnell, a wizened saxophonist whose improvisations seemed to channel the ghosts of jazz legends, and Simone, a vocalist whose vibrato resonated with the gentle power of a transformative truth. Together, we recorded a set that defied categorization. It was equal parts homage to the soulful traditions of our forefathers and a bold proclamation of our desire to reclaim the narrative in our own terms. The session was intense, filled with moments of unspoken understanding amid spontaneous musical exchanges. I remember tearfully acknowledging that every drop of sweat and every aching note carried within it the soul of a community that had been systematically marginalized yet refused to bow down. It was during these sessions that I truly began to grasp the intricate dual nature of my journey. A constant tension between the alluring promise of commercial success, which dangled before me like a tempting mirage, and the sacred need to maintain my artistic integrity, a beacon that guided my very essence. This conflict was not merely personal. It was a reflection of a broader struggle faced by countless artists navigating a world that often prioritized profit over purpose. In the midst of that creative communion, a space where vulnerability and strength converged, I found solace in the reflective silence of early mornings, the dawn breaking softly as I replayed the echoes of the night before. Conversely, the dizzying rush of midnight performances in subterranean clubs, where the walls thrummed with the pulse of the city, ignited a fire within me, as palpable as the very beat of life coursing through my veins. Within those intimate, dimly lit venues, the audience and I shared a profound connection, a collective heartbeat resonating through our shared experiences. In a sense, every performance evolved into a ritual, a fervent prayer to God, a heartfelt tribute to my ancestors whose sacrifices paved the way for my voice, and a bold declaration of independence against the forces that sought to suppress our stories. These moments crystallized my understanding that music was not just an art form, it was a lifeline to my community, a channel through which our resilience and spirit could soar, despite the weight of adversity pressing down upon us. Outside of the sanctuaries of music, the political landscape continued to shape our everyday lives. Reagan-era policies, with their emphasis on deregulation and austerity, had a profound, often devastating impact on urban communities like mine. Job losses, cuts in social services, and a general sense of abandonment infiltrated the daily lives of those who, for generations, had relied on the community networks built in the face of adversity. I witnessed firsthand how these policies translated into the physical decay of neighborhoods and in the fraying social fabric of a once thriving Harlem. Yet in that decay, there was also an undercurrent of rebellious resilience, a determination to fight back, to innovate, and to take pride in our culture. My music, then, was not simply a commercial product, but a political statement, a living archive of struggle and perseverance. Despite the mounting pressure from both the industry and the political environment, I refused to lose myself. A turning point came in late 1989 when I was invited to perform at a benefit concert organized by a coalition of artists and activists. The event, held at one of New York City's long-forgotten subway stations, celebrated the spirit of urban resistance and was attended by an eclectic mix of community leaders, fellow musicians, and even some prominent figures in the political sphere. Among the notable attendees was Reverend Jesse Jackson, whose words had always stirred a fire within me, echoing the struggles many of us were preparing to articulate through our art. When he took the stage to speak of unity, justice, and the transformative power of culture, I felt as though every barrier I had ever faced was being chipped away by the honest recognition of our shared struggle, igniting a flame of inspiration within me. The performance that night was unlike any other. The raw energy of the audience, mingled with the fervor of social activism, spurred me to pour every ounce of my heart into my music. I felt as if my very soul was laid bare in every note I sang. In that moment of catharsis, I realized that my battle was bigger than any singular professional challenge. It was a battle for the soul of a community, a fight to reclaim our identity from a world bent on reducing it to a series of marketable stereotypes. I sang of hope, of loss, and of a future where artistic integrity would triumph over profit margins. And as the echoes of that performance reverberated through the tunnel walls, I knew that change, however incremental, was within reach. In the aftermath of the benefit concert, my career began to take unexpected turns. While the major labels continued to offer me contracts that sought to dilute my sound, a growing network of independent producers and artists began to rally around the ethos of authenticity. This was a period when the underground community's defiant spirit was starting to seep into the corridors of power. I was approached by a small, progressive label that promised creative freedom and a genuine commitment to diversity. At long last, an opportunity arose to record an album that did not force me to sacrifice the very essence of who I was. I signed on, feeling as if I had finally reached an understanding with fate, one that allowed me to remain true to my roots while stepping into the spotlight of broader recognition. As I prepared for the album's recording sessions in early 1990, I was enveloped by a sense of anticipation and trepidation. I knew that success in this industry was never guaranteed, but I also knew that with every note I wrote and every chord I struck, I was contributing to more than just my own legacy. I was speaking on behalf of every Black artist who had ever been sidelined, every soul that had been dismissed as too raw to be polished, and every community that had been denied the recognition it deserved. I revisited the dusty archives of my early days, the choir rehearsals in my grandmother's living room, the soul-stirring sermons in our church, and the gritty nights in underground clubs where the music was as real as the struggles that birthed it. Every memory became a source of inspiration, fueling my determination to create an album that would stand as a testament to our collective resilience. During those long studio days, I found myself once again in the presence of mentors and allies. Harold Johnson's patient wisdom continued to be a guiding light, and alongside Mariah's unwavering belief in my authenticity, I formed bonds with other artists whose struggles paralleled my own. Our conversations inspired long hours of reflection and mutual support. We shared stories of the systematic discrimination we had faced, how record executives like Chuck Carter dismissed our artistry because it did not fit the commercially sanitized blueprint, and how we dreamed of creating music that reflected our genuine selves. More importantly, we found solace in each other's company, reaffirming that our stories were indispensable chapters in the broader narrative of American culture. We debated the nuances of artistic freedom late into the night, often discussing the moments that defined us as we grappled with our identities in a world that insisted on conformity, finding strength in our unity. One particularly searing memory from that period was a spontaneous jam session following a recording break. The studio's makeshift lounge was filled with the smell of coffee and the sound of animated conversation. During a lull, an older musician named Leroy, who had himself weathered many storms in the industry, leaned over and confided, "Tony, they want you to change who you are, because what you truly are scares them." His words, delivered in a gravelly whisper, resonated with every fiber of my being. I realized that my very authenticity was an act of rebellion, a challenge to the stereotype that sought to strip away the complexities of our heritage and replace them with homogenized, marketable images. This realization fueled my resolve, and as the jam session morphed into an impassioned ensemble performance, I felt more connected than ever to the generations that had come before me. I was now a vessel carrying forward the legacy of soul, resistance, and unyielding hope. The long-awaited release of my album, aptly titled Soul of the Underground, arrived amid a maelstrom of anticipation and skepticism. Critics from mainstream outlets dismissed it as too niche or overly political, yet within the underground community, it resonated as an anthem for change. I recall the day of the album's launch in the fall of 1990, a brisk October afternoon where the golden light of autumn seemed to mirror the fire in our hearts. An intimate listening session was arranged at one of the very clubs that had served as the cradle for so many of my early performances. The venue was packed with familiar faces, local artists, activists, loyal fans, and even a few forward-thinking industry insiders. That day, as every note filled the room, I realized that my struggle had been woven into every sound wave. The music was raw and unfiltered, a mirror reflecting the undying spirit of Harlem and the resilience that had carried us all through decades of marginalization. However, the journey towards industry recognition was not without its moments of bitter irony. In early 1991, a panel convened by the Recording Academy, prompted by the diversity debate following the 1985 Grammy Awards, aimed to address long-standing grievances about recognition and fair representation within the awards process. To my surprise, I was invited to participate, not as a mainstream celebrity, but as a representative of the very underground voices that had struggled to break through the sanitized veils of corporate music. Speaking on that panel was both harrowing and inspiring. I recounted my experiences with discrimination from record labels and described, in painstaking detail, the nuances of protesting through my art. The panel discussion was marked by fervent arguments and impassioned declarations from every corner of the musical spectrum. Even though my words were met with varying reactions, from fervent agreements to skeptical glances, the experience cemented my belief in the power of speaking truth to power and standing firm in our narratives as artists. With a determined stride, I ventured further down the avenue, my eyes scanning for the familiar faces of local artists. Each corner of the street seemed to offer a new glimpse into the lives of those who found solace in their craft. I spotted a cluster of painters, their easels set up against the vibrant backdrop of an old brick wall adorned with a breathtaking mural. The way they interacted with their canvases was nothing short of mesmerizing, a dance of passion and creativity that encapsulated the very spirit of the city. As I approached, one painter, an elderly man with silver-streaked hair, caught my eye. His hands, stained with an array of colors, told stories of countless hours spent lost in his world of imagination. I introduced myself, and he smiled warmly, inviting me to take a seat on a nearby bench. "Art is not just a form of expression, it's survival," he explained, his voice rich with experience. He shared tales of struggle, of times when the world seemed to ignore his talents, yet he persevered, driven by the need to create. This was exactly what I was searching for, the unfiltered essence of life as experienced by those who refuse to be silenced. The stories unfolded like the layers of paint on their canvases, each one revealing a deeper truth about the relationship between art and the human condition. I listened intently as the man spoke about the community that had formed around the art scene, an eclectic mix of personalities who supported each other through the highs and lows. Inspired, I decided to document these encounters, not merely as interviews, but as a tapestry of human experiences woven together by a common thread, the unyielding desire to express oneself. I pulled out my notebook, jotting down notes and sketching ideas for a larger project, a multimedia exhibition that would highlight these artists and their journeys, bringing their voices to the forefront. As the sun began to dip below the horizon, casting a golden hue over the city, I felt a renewed sense of purpose. Each story I captured not only celebrated resilience, but also reinforced the notion that art has the power to elevate marginalized voices. I envisioned galleries filled with faces, their narratives told through both visuals and sound, inviting others to engage with the beauty of creation amidst adversity. The street continued to pulse with life around me, as jazz played in the distance and laughter echoed between buildings. The city was alive, all its struggles and triumphs whispered in the wind, waiting to be heard. Armed with my pen and an open heart, I stepped deeper into this vibrant world, ready to share the stories of those who dared to dream, to create, and ultimately to inspire. That evening, I made my way to a small cafe renowned for its open mic nights, a haven for aspiring musicians and poets alike. The walls were adorned with audacious art that challenged norms and sparked conversations. I settled into a corner with a notebook, eager to soak in the atmosphere. I listened intently as artists took the stage, each pouring their heart into songs that expressed pain, hope, and the unfairness of their struggles. There was a palpable sense of community that night, a shared understanding that transcended the typical barriers put forth by the industry's gatekeepers. After a soulful singer left the stage, I approached her, a fierce light in her eyes. Her name was Mia, and her journey of self-discovery through music echoed my own. As we exchanged stories, I felt invigorated by her passion. Together, we envisioned a collective that could galvanize artists from every corner of the city, a series of showcases that celebrated the raw, unedited music that represented us all. I returned home that night with a growing sense of purpose. It wasn't just about my personal experience anymore. It was about creating a network. I could already envision flyers plastered across community boards, inviting artists to join us, challenging the status quo and reclaiming their narrative. Our movement would be grassroots, built from the ground up, offering a platform where authenticity was valued over commercial appeal. As the weeks progressed, our group began to take shape. We hosted workshops on songwriting, vocal techniques, and navigating the complexities of the music business without losing one's artistic integrity. The excitement was infectious. Word spread organically among artists hungry for a space to express themselves freely. We curated our first open showcase, carefully selecting a mix of genres and styles, determined to honor the diverse tapestry of talent in our neighborhoods. The night of the showcase arrived, and the atmosphere crackled with anticipation. The intimate setting filled quickly, the air thick with creativity and camaraderie. Each performer took the stage with a fearlessness that left the audience in awe. In those raw performances, I witnessed the potent magic of voices finally given a microphone. We were not just participants in the music industry. We were the architects of a new soundscape, one that celebrated vulnerability and strength in equal measure. Amidst the applause and cheers, I realized we were creating more than just music. We were building a movement. Our collective was a reminder to each artist present that their voices mattered, that the echoes of the underground had a rightful place in the hearts of listeners everywhere. I could feel the weight of antiquated norms slipping away, replaced by a rising tide of creativity that promised to reshape the landscape of our industry. Looking out at the faces illuminated by the stage lights, I knew this was only the beginning. The fight against censorship was not merely a battle for our individual souls, but a larger fight for the soul of music itself. Together, we would push through barriers and amplify the message that art must always be free, as poignant and imperfect as the journey demands. Every day since that pivotal moment has been a reflection on the true meaning of identity and perseverance. I witnessed firsthand how the industry's begrudging acknowledgement of my work slowly began to unlock doors that had long been sealed by prejudice. Invitations to collaborate with other artists, opportunities to perform at larger venues, and a gradual shift in the narrative surrounding Black musical authenticity all signified that change was indeed possible. But these gains were never won without struggle. Each contract, every handshake, came with the unspoken condition that I would temper my raw expression in exchange for acceptance, a condition I continually and courageously refused to abide by. At home, my life was enriched by quiet moments of reflection with Mariah and the cherished recollections of our mother, whose gentle insistence on pride and dignity remained a steadfast beacon. Our conversations would often drift into the realm of memory, how our mother had sung hymns that resonated with the weight of centuries, how her faith had fortified us against the brutal winds of change, and how each loss and victory in our lives was part of a larger intergenerational struggle for respect and recognition. I came to understand that my music was not simply an external performance. It was an extension of every struggle, every triumph, and every hope that had ever been vested in the soul of Harlem. As our project gained momentum, we were met with both enthusiasm and resistance. Some in the community embraced our initiative, recognizing its potential to revive old stories and celebrate cultural pride. Others, however, cautioned us about the fragility of sharing personal narratives, fearing that our voices might be misinterpreted or co-opted by those outside our experience. Despite these apprehensions, we pressed forward, knowing that our stories were sacred and deserved to be heard. Throughout the process, I grew deeply connected not only to the musicians whose stories we were telling, but also to the historical context that shaped their artistry. Many spoke of the struggles of gentrification, the pain of losing beloved venues, and the resilience that fueled their creativity. In one particularly moving interview, an elder musician recalled the vibrant sounds of the Apollo Theater echoing through the streets, illuminating the nights with rhythms that brought people together, transcending racial barriers. Such anecdotes reinforced my belief that music was more than mere entertainment. It was a profound expression of collective experience and survival. As we curated these narratives, we also sought to include the voices of the new generation, young artists inspired by the legacies of those who came before them. We organized workshops at local community centers, encouraging collaboration between seasoned musicians and emerging talent. This intergenerational dialogue sparked fresh ideas, revitalizing traditional sounds while forging contemporary interpretations. It became a beautiful testimony to the cyclical nature of artistic expression, where past influences and future aspirations collided beautifully. Our final exhibition was the culmination of the hard work and cherished stories gathered over the years. With displays of interviews, photographs, and live performances, we transformed a once dilapidated gallery space into a vibrant celebration of Black identity and creative resilience. We aptly titled it Echoes of Harlem, a tapestry of sound and identity. The night of the opening was electric. Audience members immersed themselves in the stories, reflecting on their shared histories and the generational threads that connected them. It was a moment of catharsis, a healing space where laughter and tears intertwined in a tapestry rich with emotion and memory. Looking back now, I realize that this project was not merely an exploration of musical heritage. It was a reclamation of power. It challenged the narratives imposed by the mainstream and invited us to assert our truth boldly. The journey also strengthened my resolve to advocate for the representation of marginalized voices within the industry. I have since dedicated my career to nurturing platforms that uplift diverse artists, ensuring that their stories resonate beyond the confines of societal expectations. The echoes of Harlem live on, a testament to the enduring spirit of a community that refuses to be silenced. During one of these documentary sessions, I sat in a small, warmly lit room with the interviewer. I spoke of the time when I first performed in that underground club, the exhilaration of breaking free from the constraints of the church choir, and the painful rejections by major record labels. I recalled my staunch interactions with Mr. Carter and detailed how every no only fueled the fire within me to prove that authenticity should never be compromised. I explained that the diversity debate at the 1985 Grammy Awards was not just about accolades. It was about acknowledging the rightful place of Black artistry in a cultural continuum that had always been vibrant and multifaceted. The depth of these conversations made it clear that our stories were inextricably bound to the historical battles for civil rights and cultural preservation. They were a reminder that our struggle was not only to be seen, but also to be heard, understood, and respected. As the recordings continued, I found myself deeply pondering the stark contrast between the commercial imperatives of the record labels and the raw, unfiltered power of my community's artistic expression. Each chord I struck on my battered guitar resonated not just in the air around me, but also within the rich tapestry of stories that had shaped my identity. Every soulful note that escaped my lips was imbued with the legacy of generations, those who fought tirelessly for the right to express themselves freely and without apology, faced with resistance that often sought to invalidate their experiences. It was a legacy steeped in both grief and hope, and I began to perceive my own identity as a living archive, a repository of emotions that symbolized a defiant resilience, refusing to be silenced by the status quo. I poured this essence into my songwriting, crafting lyrics that recounted the ways Reagan-era policies had wrought havoc upon urban communities, stripping away resources, opportunities, and the very fabric of cohesion that had once held neighborhoods together. My words became powerful instruments of truth, shedding light on how the ongoing struggle for equality had morphed into a charged demand for cultural recognition. In each song, I dared to pose uncomfortable questions that lingered in the air around me. Why was authenticity treated as a rebellious act, a thing to be commodified and diluted for mass consumption? And why did the industry, in its relentless pursuit of profit and marketability, continually sideline those who had paved the way for its very existence? These thoughts echoed in my mind, fueling my resolve to create art that did more than just entertain. I wanted it to provoke thought, spark conversation, and ultimately facilitate change. With each passing year, I garnered recognition from unexpected quarters. Music critics began to praise the emotional depth and unapologetic honesty of my work. Smaller independent radio stations across New York began playing Soul of the Underground, crediting it as an authentic voice rising above the stale echoes of sanitized pop. In late 1993, a breakthrough came when an influential music magazine published a cover story titled The Real Sound of Harlem, Tony Jenkins and the Underground Revolution. The article singled out my journey as emblematic of a broader cultural awakening, a struggle to reclaim identity amid the forces of modern capitalism. The recognition was bittersweet, for it underscored both the progress that had been made and the immense challenges that continued to plague Black artists in America. Even as accolades began to follow me, I remained haunted by the memory of those early rejections and the bitter encounters with executives like Chuck Carter. I continued to receive proposals that required me to conform to a narrow, market-friendly version of my true self. Every new contract that landed on my desk was met with a quiet defiance, a refusal to let go of the authenticity that fueled my spirit. I knew that the price I paid for recognition would always come with the expectation of compromise. Yet I also realized that my influence was slowly reshaping the narrative, one soulful performance at a time. The turning point came during the winter of 1994. After countless performances in cramped, smoky clubs and spirited debates on stage and off, my persistence was rewarded with an invitation I would never forget. A prestigious music awards ceremony meant to honor innovation, resistance, and the contributions of underrepresented voices in the industry, in a gesture that many saw as a long overdue recognition of the talent smothered by corporate oversight. I was nominated for Best R&B Performance. The night of the ceremony was surreal, a blend of glittering lights, hushed expectations, and the raw energy of artists who had fought long battles to claim their space. I sat in the audience, a mix of elation and disbelief churning within me as the presenters took their places on stage. When my name was called, I walked onto the stage with a profound sense of responsibility, not only for myself, but for every underdog who had ever dared to defy the conventions that straitjacketed us. The applause was thunderous, but I knew that what mattered most was not the shimmering accolade, but the fact that my journey had become a symbol of perseverance and cultural affirmation. When I accepted the award, I spoke with quiet conviction. This stage, right here and now, belongs to all of us who have refused to let the world define our art, our identities, and our worth. Let this be proof that authenticity is a force that no barrier can suppress. Those words, uttered from the depths of my soul, resonated with a generation that had long yearned for a voice that was at once honest and proud. In the months that followed, the landscape of the music industry began to shift imperceptibly but inexorably. I was approached by new collaborators who were eager to explore uncharted sonic territories. My early traditionalists, those who had grown up with the gospel hymns and jazz improvisations, joined forces with younger artists influenced by the burgeoning hip-hop era. The resulting fusion was an art form that neither succumbed wholly to commercial pressures nor clung rigidly to the past. It was a true tapestry of our combined experiences, an evolution that honored our roots while boldly reaching for a vibrant future. Looking back on the tumultuous decade that had defined my journey, from the narrow confines of a Harlem church choir to the expansive, echoing underground clubs and finally to the polished stages of industry recognition, I feel a deep sense of gratitude for every moment of hardship and triumph. The specter of discrimination, the pressures to compromise, and the painful negotiations with executives like Charles Carter were not roadblocks. They were lessons that honed my resolve and sharpened my identity. Each encounter was a reminder that the fight for authenticity and cultural dignity transcends personal ambition. It is a movement, a continuum of voices that demands to be heard despite the odds. In every note I play, I channel the echoes of street corners where legends once sang, their rhythms still whispering through the bustling streets. My commitment to authentically portray our narratives drives me to seek out stories that resonate with the struggles of today. Each melody is crafted with intention, a bridge between the past and the future, connecting generations through a shared experience of joy and pain. The vibrant community of Harlem, with its portraits of resilience, inspires me not just to consume music, but also to contribute to its evolution. I often find myself collaborating with young artists, nurturing their voices, and inviting them to share their perspectives. The collaborative spirit is what gives music its lifeblood, and I believe in creating a space where every voice matters, where innovation thrives alongside tradition. It is this fusion of old and new that keeps our music alive, allowing it to transform and reflect the societal shifts around us. As I step on stage, I see not just a crowd of fans, but a mosaic of souls, each carrying their own story. My performances aim to be a dialogue, where the audience and I exchange energy, emotions, and stories. The claps, cheers, and even the quiet moments of reflection are all part of this intricate tapestry we weave together. With every tour, I strive to honor the places I visit, infusing local sounds and influences into my work. Music is universal, yet each region carries its own voice, a stitch in the larger quilt of global culture. I want to celebrate those unique threads while grounding my music in the profound heritage I carry from Harlem. It's a balancing act of respect and innovation, where I'm both a storyteller and a curator of shared human emotion. Yet amid all the evolution, I remain vigilant about the pitfalls of fame and commercial success. The allure of mainstream recognition can be intoxicating, but I know that true artistry thrives in authenticity. I often remind myself and others in this industry that our worth cannot be measured by charts or social media metrics, but by the lasting impact of our art on people's lives. As I pen these thoughts, I am filled with gratitude for the influences that shaped me. The elders of Harlem, the vibrant culture, and the music that pulses through my veins remind me of my mission. Each stage I grace is a sacred space, a continuation of a legacy I am proud to represent. And while the world outside spins faster, I will hold on to the essence of what it means to create from a place of truth and love, crafting melodies that echo through the ages. Looking ahead, I am filled with hope. The industry is slowly awakening to the value of authenticity and diversity, and with each passing day, more voices are daring to break free from the shadows of compromise. The underground clubs that once nurtured my dreams continue to exist, even as the mainstream slowly recognizes the power of soulful rebellion. And somewhere amid the pulse of New York City and the echoes of Harlem's eponymous spirit, a young artist now sings in the church choir, inspired by my journey and determined to carry the torch of unyielding integrity forward. This is my story, a chronicle of struggle, resistance, and the transcendent power of music. It is a story written in the key of life, with all its discordant notes and unexpected harmonies, a tale that proves that even when the world seeks to silence the truth, a single voice can ignite a revolution. As I continue to share my truth on stages both grand and humble, I remain ever grateful for the influences of my mother's warm embrace, my sister Mariah's unwavering support, and the guidance of mentors like Harold Johnson. Their love and wisdom have been the bedrock upon which I built everything that I am today. In closing, I wish to leave these words for anyone who ever feels that their truth might be too raw or too rebellious to be accepted. Stand firm in your identity, nurture the spirit of community, and let your art be a testament to all that is real and unyielding. Even in an industry built on fleeting trends and the impermanence of profit, authenticity remains a force that can never be silenced. Our stories, rendered in soulful lyrics and impassioned performances, are the pulse of our shared humanity, a rhythm that transcends time, prejudice, and any attempt to dim our collective light. Thank you for walking with me on this journey, from the simple church choirs of Harlem to the underground stages of New York City, and finally to a moment of industry recognition that was earned through sweat, passion, and an unbreakable commitment to artistic integrity. My journey is far from over, but every step I take is a tribute to those who came before me and a promise to those who will follow. May our music continue to serve as both solace and an inspiration, a call to action for a future where every voice is heard and every soul is embraced. As I pen these final words, I remember the soothing strains of an old gospel hymn, one my mother used to sing softly in the quiet of night. That hymn, like my journey, is a testament to resilience and hope. I stand here today as a proud son of Harlem, a messenger of the soul, and a steadfast believer that the unyielding spirit of our heritage will always find its embodiment in our art. The rhythm of resistance lives on, and so does my promise to always sing my truth, no matter the cost. May we all continue to find strength and inspiration in the power of our own voices, knowing that our passion, our identity, and our truth are the building blocks of a brighter, more authentic future.